The keynote quiz associated with this session in the ISWC 2025 Challenge has now opened for you to play. This quiz will remain open until the end of the conference, where we will tally the results. So if you have not yet checked out the quizzes in the ISWC 2025 Challenge, please do so.
The next session of ISWC 2025 is titled The Longevity Economy, Lessons and Opportunities in Living Longer. This session discusses the powerful new and emerging economic force, the longevity economy. In grappling with an increasingly aging world, how we manage the changes across consumption, labor, caregiving, and entrepreneurship will be crucial and impact industries, markets, and policy priorities worldwide. Here to discuss this is Haleh Nazri, the lead for the longevity economy in the Center for Financial and Monetary Systems at the World Economic Forum. Ms. Nazri leads the WEF's work on the Longevity Economy Initiative since its inception, recently collaborating with over 50 organizations globally to develop the document Future-Proofing the Longevity Economy, Innovations and Key Trends. She also leads the forum's Women in Finance community, which brings together leaders across financial services, identifying action-oriented solutions that can be amplified by the WEF. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Haleh Nazri.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. I didn't realize we were going to be rated on our session, so now I'm a little nervous. Unlike the Prime Minister, I'm going to be using slides to talk about what we're going to be doing today because it is such a huge topic. But first, I want to thank everyone for inviting me today. It's my first time in Kuala Lumpur, and it's been wonderful. So thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to begin by talking about the world's demographics. They are changing. I'm going to be sharing some numbers on here with you. I know we talk a lot about how Asia is aging rapidly, but it is actually happening all around the world. In the US, for example, more than 4.1 million Americans are turning 65 each year through 2027. That is 11,200 people each day. Across OECD countries, fertility rates have declined from 1.98 in 1990 to 1.51 in 2022. That is 27% below the level required to maintain a stable population size. Brazil will have the world's 5th largest population of seniors by 2030. Continental Europe is projected to be only 4% of the world's population by 2070. Half of the global population growth from now to 2050 will occur in sub-Saharan Africa. 70% of sub-Saharan Africa is under the age of 30. In China, the population is projected to shrink from 1.4 billion now to 1.3 billion in 2050 and below 800 million by 2100. And in South Korea, they are projected to become the world's most aged country by 2044. The number of people in their 70s exceeded those in their 20s for the first time in 2023. Now, these are big numbers, but this is just to put into context what it is we're dealing with here. And I'm delighted to be here to talk about this topic, but I'd like to say that the way we talk about it at the World Economic Forum is as an opportunity, and that's really how I see it here. So when I was reflecting on the title, I wished we could change it to Living to 100. How do we prepare? Because it really is a magnificent advancement in global health that we're able to live these longer lives. And what we'd really like to do is talk about this as an opportunity rather than a challenge. And the way we do that is by changing the narrative for the 21st century. We are thinking with a 20th century mindset for a 21st century issue. We believe the propaganda that the generations do not get along and one is taking from the other is nonsense. That is just not true. The only way that we can think about longevity is through an intergenerational lens, with all of us working together, focusing on what we can achieve and accomplish. As the Prime Minister said, 70 really is the new 50. A recent IMF article shared that a person who was 70 in 2022 had the same cognitive health score as a 53-year-old in 2000. People want to do more, but there is a lack of imagination of what that could look like. And finally, we want to focus on the fact that aging is not a disease. Aging is not a burden to overcome. It is an advantage. It is a positive result of decades of amazing health advancements. Instead of treating our older population as a burden or a silver tsunami that we must tame, why can't we change the discourse and call it what it is? A new demographic advancement that could be the engine for future growth. The way we do this is by transforming systems for this new century. We need to start thinking about new structures. The problem is that our institutions and policies were built and designed for a 70-year life. It is time for new thinking around everything from the way we work, to financing our retirement, to caregiving, to lifelong learning. We need to think about new innovations. I love this graph. This is one of my favorite graphs that we have seen that really shows exactly what is on with the global population. In 1950, we were just a small little triangle. And in 100 years, it has morphed into something else. And that's what we need to think about when we're thinking about what we need to do with our structures. We need to create innovative and a more productive future that is intergenerational, sustainable, and inclusive of people who were left behind the first time that pension and retirement systems were created almost 100 years ago. And we need to have new ideas to focus on the opportunities and the big ideas that can make it happen. We have to reflect on the question, what does the 100-year-old life need in order to thrive and flourish? These are the questions we've been considering at the World Economic Forum, where I lead the longevity economy work, and I'm thrilled to do so. We created a set of longevity economy principles several years ago. And the reason we did this is because we think this is a big issue that needs to be elevated on the global stage. We think it is just as important as climate change, just as important as geopolitics. But it's such a big issue that we didn't quite know how people were going to talk about it. So we created basically a framework around which to discuss it. We gathered our partners, and first we created about 43 principles, realizing that was far too big. And we whittled it down to 6, and we launched it last year at the annual meeting in Davos. I'm going to be sharing what those 6 principles are with you today and going over why we think they're relevant and important. So the first one is ensure financial resilience across key life events. So we're going to do a little quiz, if that's okay, to see how much you know about each of these 6 principles. So you could just raise your hand or yell it out if you want. If there were a sudden loss of income, approximately blank % of people would run out of savings within a month. So is it A, 15%, B, 30%, C, 40%, or D, 50%? Just shout it out. It's D, 50%. 50% of people would run out of savings within a month. That is why this was the very first principle that we put forward. Key life events, both planned and unplanned, can push individuals to financial hardship and, in extreme cases, the brink of poverty. According to the OECD, if there were a loss of income, approximately half of people would run out of savings within a month, and 28% would run out within a week. We think this is one of the most crucial principles we have to focus on going forward when considering the longevity economy. The second one is also focused on finances. It is to provide universal access to impartial financial education. It is critical. And when we talk about financial education, we think about it in a broader sense of the world. We include longevity literacy as well as financial literacy. So for this one, what % of the adult population in Malaysia is considered financially literate? Is it A, 12%, B, 36%, C, 45%, or D, 57%? It's B, 36%. However, congratulations, you are still ahead of most of the world. There's only 1 in 3 people who are considered financially literate. That's approximately 33% of people, and that's according to the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center. In an OECD study across 26 countries, 42% of individuals worry about meeting their everyday living expenses, and 37% are financially just getting by. This is a huge problem. We need to transform systems and support individuals. To do that, we need system guardrails, we need behavioral economics, and just-in-time financial education to be integrated into the development of financial ecosystems. While the individual retains freedom in decision-making, systems should be designed to help them thrive. So those are the first 2 of the principles. They're both focused on finances, but the third one is focused on something just as critical, and that is preventative health and healthy aging. We need to prioritize healthy aging as foundational for the longevity economy. The average global health span lifespan gap is blank years. And just for everyone, lifespan is how long you live. So let's say 70. Health span is how long you live in good health. So what is the answer? Is it A, 1.5, B, 3.2, C, 5.8, or D, 9.6? Shout it out. It's D, 9.6, almost 10 years in ill health. While the average life expectancy has risen significantly over the past decades, 1/5 of an individual's life is expected to be lived in a state of illness. Increases in lifespan have not been matched by increases in health span. This is a huge problem and gets us back to the first 2 principles, because what winds up happening is people spend all of their money on their health. 80% of adults in developing countries are worried about not having sufficient financial means to meet future medical expenses. And those who experience chronic health conditions, that's about 60% in the United States, struggle to accumulate wealth and save for retirement. So instead of saving for retirement, they're just trying to keep themselves healthy. That is a problem. Our 4th principle is around an age-inclusive workforce, which is going to be critical as we live longer. So it is to evolve jobs and lifelong skill building for a multi-generational workforce. There are going to be 5 generations working side by side in the future. So this question, in high-income economies, there's a potential blank in untapped annual GDP from not employing older adults looking for work. Is it A, 900 billion, B, 5 trillion, C, 2 trillion, or D, 8 trillion? It's B, $5 trillion. That's a lot of money. Across the globe, more people are retiring or exiting the workforce than are joining. Approximately 25% of adults aged 55 plus would like to work in old age, but are not currently doing so, citing lack of opportunity and difficulties finding a job. In high-income economies alone, there is a potential $5 trillion in incremental annual GDP that remains untapped by not employing older workers looking for work. We're not saying people have to work longer. We're saying if people want to work longer, make that path for them easier. Allow them to come back to work. Let's really actually also focus on ageism that is quite rampant still. And the other thing we have to embrace is technology. Reskilling workers as they grow through the organization will be critical as businesses transform to embrace new technology and AI. I'm 12 minutes in. That's the first time I used AI. I'm happy about that. Our 5th one is to design systems and environments for social connection and purpose. We think this is absolutely critical. When my friends ask me what I do differently now that I focus on this work for the last several years, they all expect me to say I invest differently or focus on my finances, but this is actually the one that's really changed for me. We all know, well, hopefully we all know that we need to save for retirement. I have my 401k. I do focus on my health. But I have really doubled down on this one, ensuring that I have a community around me as I get older who can help me and support me throughout the years. So this question, lack of purpose and social connection has been linked to A, higher risk of developing functional and cognitive disabilities, B, a higher risk of depression, C, shorter lifespans, and D, all of the above. It is D, all of the above. Social isolation is associated with a 50% increased risk of dementia and significantly increases a person's risk of premature death. 78% of older workers in the United States indicate that they have seen or experienced workplace age discrimination. This is where we get back to ageism. Imagine if you do have a purpose, you do want to go back to work, but you can't because of ageist policies. Finally, this is something that the East knows much better than we do in the West, but this ikigai, this sense of purpose. Older adults with a motivating force, a sense of purpose, have a 31% lower risk of developing functional disability and a 36% lower risk of dementia. That in alone should make us want to seek more purpose in our lives. Our final principle is the one that I'm quite passionate about, and that is intentionally addressing longevity inequalities across gender, race, and class. This is our final quiz for the day. Across the OECD, women receive 15% less retirement income than men. Is it true or false? It is false. They receive 25% less retirement. Exactly. Benefits of longevity are not felt equally. Higher income individuals are experiencing gains in life expectancy, while lower income groups face stagnancy or decline. Within and across countries, the richest on average can live up to 30 years longer than the poorest. This is from one neighborhood to the other in certain places. This is a triple storm for women. Women aged 65 and over receive 26% less retirement income compared to men. What we're dealing with is that we live longer than men, approximately 5 years. We make less money than men, so we have less in savings. And increasingly, we are the one who are the caregivers and will leave the workforce to take care of either our children or our parents. And that's part of the problem with the informal caregiving. It can perpetuate a cycle of economic insecurity. Disparities persist in the provision of unpaid informal caregivers, elder care. 30% of informal caregivers from low-income households are providing daily care, impacting their own ability to save for their own futures in older age. These were the 6 principles we created. What we wanted to do was to raise the profile of this topic, and it really worked. We have been able to do that. More people are talking about the topic. And the other thing we wanted to do, because we had a lot of private sector engagement in the topic, but we wanted more public sector engagement. We wanted the governments in the room to talk about this too, and we succeeded, and we're very excited for that. So what we decided to do next is to double-click on the economic implications. And we went and we focused on 5 key trends of the longevity economy, what we really have to look out for going forward. But we didn't just want to list the problems. What we also did is show the countries, the companies, and the organizations that are really doing it right and are innovating and thinking about new ways of developing this. So 5 trends. We're going to start off with the first one. Sorry, this is just elaborating a bit more on that. We had over 50 organizations helping us with this. The World Economic Forum really prides itself on being a multi-stakeholder organization. And that's really what helped us with this, I believe, which is we have the private sector, of course, but we also have the public sector and we have civil society. That includes academics, nonprofits, NGOs who work in the space. So we have all sorts of viewpoints to help us determine what we need to do going forward. And this quote is my favorite one from the report. The future of the longevity economy is not in some distant moment. It is already here. That is something that I think we all need to really consider going forward. Our first trend was around building resilient public retirement systems. It is obviously critical going forward. Many of these public retirement systems were created 100 years ago and have not been updated. As you know, demographic shifts and fiscal strain are creating unprecedented challenges. We need innovative reforms that expand coverage, ensure equitable contributions, and align benefits with demographic realities. And most importantly, more than half of the world's workforce operates in informal economies, lacking access to pensions or retirement savings, leaving millions unprepared for financial security in old age. So what we did is we created actions for a path forward. We have several suggestions. I won't go through every single one. I'll just quickly go through a few of them. But these are the kind of things that we think people need to consider going forward. So first is implement sustainable financing mechanisms. Adjusting contribution rates, linking retirement ages to life expectancy, and diversifying investment strategies can help maintain system solvency. Need to adapt gradual, well-communicated reforms. You can't jump into this. It's just not fair to people. Phased policy transitions can balance sustainability with fairness, preventing sudden disruptions for retiree benefits and strengthening public confidence, which is critical to what we need to do going forward. We need to expand coverage to informal and gig workers. This is going to be a big one. We need to encourage or mandate auto-enrollment in retirement savings. England has really pushed this forward, and they have gotten such successful outcomes by pushing auto-enrollment. And finally, we need to use technology for efficiency and accessibility. We had several companies that we focused on who was doing this well. EPF was one of them. Congratulations. But the one that I will focus on for today's presentation is the Canadian Pension Plan, which was in a very difficult situation several years ago and took the risk of privatizing their pension fund. It was kind of a big deal. They took that risk, and it's really paid off for them. They cover nearly all their workers in Canada, including immigrants and self-employed individuals. They are independent. They operate at arm's length from the government. This enables the board to provide professional management free from political influence. CPP assets are allocated across global equities, infrastructure, real estate, private equity, and other assets in more than 50 countries. And their latest actuarial review shows that they will be financially sustainable through at least 2090, which is really an impressive number. Our next big trend is from accumulation to decumulation. So what we focused on most of our life is accumulation, the fact that we need to save money for retirement. What's happening now is people are living longer and longer in retirement, 20 to 30 years. We need to focus on decumulation, how you spend that money down, and sometimes actually how you continue to invest that money over the long term to make it reliable for you. So the retirement landscape, as we know, has changed significantly over the last few decades, from guaranteed income to risk and uncertainty. And existing products appear to struggle to adequately meet the need for lifetime income. 44% of individuals fear outliving their savings, leading to uncertainty about how much they can safely spend in retirement. But here's the irony. That 44% is so nervous about spending their money, they wind up passing with almost 80% of it still because they were too scared to run out of money. Then the other half of people wind up spending it all at once and being quite stricken with what they need to do next. So financial literacy, longevity literacy around decumulation is a critical thing that we need to think about going forward. Here are some of our suggestions. We can encourage structured, flexible income solutions, expanding access to annuities, hybrid pension products, and income drawdown strategies to provide stability without limiting liquidity. We need to enhance longevity literacy and financial planning tools so that this is part of what people are thinking about. Behavioral nudges are key to improve retirement income decisions. We need to design new financial products that balance flexibility and security. And we need to embed longevity risk protection in retirement systems, ensuring that pension and retirement schemes incorporate lifetime income options to prevent financial shortfalls in later years. Our example of who does that well is Singapore's CPF Life. It is incredibly impressive, and they incorporate risk-pooling elements typical of defined benefit systems into a defined contribution framework, providing retirees with a stable, lifelong income stream. Automatic enrollment and broad participation ensures effective pooling of mortality risks while minimizing risks of adverse selection. CPF Life ensures participants receive at least their premium back through payouts or as a bequest, and the administration costs remain low due to government management, nonprofit structure, and economies of scale. Our third big trend is the role of employers in financial well-being. As we've moved away from defined benefit to defined contribution, much of what people have to think about has fallen on the individual. And the individual just does not know yet exactly what they need to do, so they go back to their employees and hope that their employees can help them through this. It is a growing challenge for employees at all life stages. Employees experience financial stress are 5 times more likely to feel disengaged at work, which is a problem for our big companies. Access to tailored financial well-being programs remain uneven, and implementing targeted financial well-being initiatives can allow employers to bridge gaps in support, ultimately benefiting both employees and organizational success. So as this shows, most employees feel responsible for employee financial wellness. 95% feel at least somewhat responsible, 53% feel extremely responsible, and 42% feel somewhat responsible. However, only 44% of companies actually offer financial wellness programs. So our actions for a path forward are to expand holistic financial wellness programs. It is key to your employers. It will make them happy and keep them there. We are back to integrating behavioral nudges into benefits design, offer flexible allocations for employer contributions, allowing employees to allocate employer contributions to what they think is most critical, whether it's retirement, emergency savings, repaying student loans, and other financial priorities. Ensure financial security for gig and contract workers, and to embed financial well-being into your corporate strategy. Aligning compensation, career progression, and financial support initiatives with overall business objectives. To have it come from the top down that this is critical for the company will be very key. For this one, we have highlighted several forward-thinking employees who've done this quite well. So Bank of America and Adobe have been quite good at integrating financial well-being into their organizational structure. They provide access to educational workshops and tools with one-on-one coaching and financial advice, and they include support for employees in managing their day-to-day finances and navigating life events. CVS Health and Tesco have helped provide financial assistance for employees. They provide short-term financial assistance, including employee relief funds and low-cost loans, to help employees facing significant hardships. And Siemens are reviewing the retirement and financial well-being programs to enhance support for non-traditional workers, such as increasing contributions for part-time workers and providing bonuses for apprentices. These are just some of the ways that companies are thinking about aiding their employers. Our fourth topic is what I think is going to be one of the most critical ones going forward, and that is the economics of caregiving and long-term care. The growing financial burden of caring is straining individuals and families, and that will just increase going forward. Working parents potentially retire with 22% less in retirement savings due to workforce interruptions caused by caregiving duties. The aging global population will require 475 million care jobs by 2030 to meet increasing demands for caregivers and long-term care services. And unpaid care work accounts for approximately 9% of global GDP, with US family caregivers providing around $600 billion in unpaid care annually. These are some of the suggestions we have for a path forward. We need to expand financial and workplace protections for carers, implementing care credits, paid leave policies, and flexible work arrangements to support those balancing employment and caring. We need to invest in long-term care infrastructure, strengthening formal care systems to reduce the reliance on unpaid family carers, and ensure access to quality service. We need to reduce the gendered impact of caring. We need to address the systemic inequalities that disproportionately affect women, workforce participation, and long-term financial security. We need to use technology and care provision solutions, and we need to provide age-friendly policies and environments, developing systems and solutions that allow individuals to age in place with dignity and independence. Who's doing this well is Japan. Japan's care innovations are quite impressive to see. They have a community-based integrated care system that allows older adults to age in place by providing localized health care, nursing care, and daily living assistance within a 30-minute radius. This is critical because it encourages older adults to take an active role in their health and well-being, which helps maintain their dignity and autonomy while promoting mutual support within the community. By enabling care at home within the community, this system reduces the need for costly institutional care. Older adults receive comprehensive assistance tailored to their individual needs within their communities. And technology plays a complementary role, with innovations such as AI-enabled monitoring systems used to detect falls and emergencies, companion robots for emotional support, and digital platforms to coordinate care among carers, families, and healthcare products. Our final one is a big emerging trend that might be one of the more difficult ones to do, and that's pathways for economic growth. And what this calls for is rethinking almost everything into a much more flexible system. The evolving nature of careers requires financial systems that support individuals through multiple transitions. Transitions, as nearly 25% of the workforce in G7 countries will be age 55 and over by 2031. Access to lifelong skill building is essential for career mobility, yet many older workers face barriers to training opportunities, hindering their ability to transition into stable, higher-paying roles. The way we talk about this within our work is the end of the three-stage life, which was what most people in this room maybe grew up with or their parents, which is school, work, and retirement, and now the multi-stage life, which means you come in and out of each of those things. So you go to school, and then you go to work, but then you might come out for a while. You might take care of your children, you might go back to work, you might go to school. So we have to think about these multi-stage lives, these transitions that we have, and how we can work into it. We also need public policy guardrails to support this evolving workforce, enabling safety nets for individuals during career changes, as well as access to retirement savings for both the formal and informal workforce. These are some of the actions for a path forward. We need to support lifelong skill building and career mobility. When young people start a job, when you first come into a job, you have all this access to skill building. But what happens to the person who's been there for a while, to some of the older workers? They should also get skill building as they are working at a company.